This is the Mediate Now with Winter Wheeler. Your clear choice for expert mediation and negotiation advice. But it's so much more than that. Take our advice, you will improve your entire life. Are you ready? Let's get to it. Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening today. My guest is Talar Herculian Coursey. Did I say your name right?
You did. I'm very impressed.
Listen, okay, it's weird, when you've only read it.
Yeah, you said it great out loud on the first try, no less. I mean, I think your day is over. You've succeeded. Big.
Done. We're ending it now. I can't get better. So Talar's current role is as General Counsel for Vista Ford Lincoln dealerships in Southern California. Now, she's in Salt Lake City, so talk about a great work from home setup. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was working from home before work from home was popular, so I'm the trendsetter.
Gotcha. Look at you. Super fancy. I knew you were super fancy. So prior to that, Talar was a dedicated labor and employment defense attorney at Fisher and Phillips out in my neck of the woods, Atlanta, Georgia. So, Talar, all I can think is that I wish I had known you back then. How fun would that have been?
I just can't even imagine. I can't imagine how different my life would be had I known you back then.
I mean, I bring light to the world, so,
You do, definitely. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind is, when I was in my 20s, I'd be up out hitting clubs until 2 or 3 in the morning and then getting up for work at 8. And
Oh, yeah.
I go to bed at 8:30 now. Life is a little different.
Just a little bit. Like the craziest story I have like that, this is a complete aside. I was living in Weston, Florida at the time, which is between Miami and Fort Lauderdale. And my favorite band, Cowboy Mouth, was playing in St. Petersburg. So me and my best friend, we hopped in the car after work, drove all the way to St. Petersburg, partied all night, drove right back home, went right to work. Not a problem. Definitely can't do that these days. But
No, I can't. Definitely. All right. Well, enough of memory lane.
enough of memory lane. But anyway, the universe gets us where we need to be when we need to be there. So, and of course, Talar, you are my networked book co-star. I wouldn't call you a co-star, not a co-author.
Let's do it. You know what? They should make a movie about it. Could you
I think
imagine?
so.
Who
Yeah,
would play who
who's
would
gonna
play
play
you?
you? Um, ooh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna think about that. It's gonna come to me, and I'll I'll tell you as we go through. How about you? What do you think?
I don't have a go-to, but the first thing that comes to mind, because this is the only celebrity I've ever been compared to, and I really don't understand why, is Deborah Messing. Do you know who that is?
I do. I think she's adorable. I can
She's
see it. I can totally see
she,
it.
she's on Will and Grace. She's like the size of my leg as far as appearances go, but I do very much relate to her personality.
Yeah,
So I think that's who would be me. Yeah.
that's awesome. That's awesome. You know what? And now that I think about it, I would love to see Gabrielle Union play me.
That would be nice. I'm not kidding. You know what? Say it with me.
Okay.
Manifest this.
All right.
Declare to the universe. Hashtag networked coming
Hashtag
out,
networked coming out
coming out soon
soon.
to a theater near you
Yes, to a theater near you
without COVID.
without COVID.
Yes. All right. It is done.
Yep, it's happening. So, Talara, thank you so much for being here. You graciously agreed to come on my crazy show and talk about your experiences as an employment lawyer. And so, we chatted about this a little bit in advance, and we want to talk about strong personalities, strong feelings, and what's happening in the room When you've got a client who's been accused of something that basically maligns their character, an entire, their entire being, right? So I never practiced employment law myself, but I have mediated some employment related cases. So I don't know what it's like to be in the room as the defense attorney, and I would love some insight on that. What's it like?
It's really, it can be really tense. I remember one of my mentors and former partners telling me when he was giving me a heads up about mediation, everybody's playing everybody.
Ooh.
I mean that may sound, so I don't know, negative or whatever, but it's like, one of these soap opera drama movies you're looking at, kind of like a whodunit and who's on whose team and what do I need to get to enlist this person's help to convince this person, because a lot of my cases were insured, the EPLI insurance, and so I would have the client, the insured, and then I would also have the carrier. And
Yeah.
so I was often in a menage a trois of legal relations, not as fun as the more commonly used version of that, I'm
All
sure.
right, and let's keep it PG.
Oh, was that inappropriate? Should we
No,
cut
I'm
that?
joking. I'm messing
Okay.
with you.
I don't know what it literally means. It's the three of us, isn't it? When I'm managing three, isn't that what that means? Manage three, menage a trois.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Okay, I'll look it up. I'll get back to you. So anyway, because I didn't want to be inappropriate, but so it's so even when you're in the defense table caucus, you are already trying to read the room, the characters, and what do I need? What does this person need in
Hmm.
order to trust me, trust the mediator to get to resolution? And obviously, the carrier's needs are very different than my insured client's needs. And like you said, it's so difficult when you're dealing with personal attacks. I mean, it's one thing if you breached a contract, you didn't send me enough widgets, or you used the wrong paint for the house, or it's a slip and fall and you should have cleaned up that mess sooner. um, I mean, in the cases that I'm defending, oftentimes they were accusing my client of, some form of discrimination, you know,
Yeah.
and they would take it very personally because um, they would often feel like, if I settle this case, I'm admitting that I'm a sexist or I'm a racist or I don't like Jews or whatever,
Right.
and so a lot of the work, honestly, for mediation for me happened before getting to mediation. I had to work on the client and kind of like prepare them, for the molding that was going to take place.
Yeah.
And some of my favorite mediators, they took the time to earn my client's trust instead of just coming in there and saying, you did some really bad things, or you're being accused of some really bad things. You're going to pay out big, so you should pay out now. I had some mediators who did do that. That did not work out very well.
Like quite
But
literally said those things. Oh God.
right. Yeah. Oh, this is
Ah,
just, this is just cost of defense. It's just a few thousand. And, they were talking money when my client really needed to talk emotions and empathy and
right.
and morals and values. Um, so the experiences that I had with some phenomenal mediators, they did take the time for that. It seemed like more often than not, the mediators I worked with, they knew well enough that they had to earn the plaintiff's trust. Well, I
Hmm.
was defense side, I was always representing the defendant. um, but it wasn't always the case that the mediator would take the time to earn the trust of my client. And in those situations where they did make that effort and that time, the case would resolve.
Yes, I love that you said that because I have conversations like that with other mediators and with lawyers too. That the defendant is never as invested as the plaintiff is, and that is so wrong. It's so far from the truth. The defendant is often very invested, no matter what kind of case it is, right? So even if it's like a slip and fall and you're the grocery store, if you've done something wrong and someone got hurt, or even if you didn't necessarily do something wrong and someone got hurt, you feel bad about that. You know, everyone has emotions. Everyone has feelings. So people do have feelings attached to all of these things. And so when, in this situation, when we're talking about accusations against someone's character, it's always about so much more than money, like you said, for the individual who's actually being accused of these things. And I would imagine that it has to be the most uncomfortable feeling to walk into a mediation or log in Zoom, knowing that everyone there has knowledge of these things that you've been accused of, right? And so you're feeling like everyone is looking at you in a certain way. Maybe they're feeling like everyone believes those accusations, and they're feeling like they need to defend themselves to everyone in the room. Did you ever find that to be true with your clients?
Yes, absolutely. And the message didn't end in the mediation room.
Mm-hmm.
It, especially in accusations of sexual harassment, I'm trying to think, it was
Yeah.
always a man that was being accused. I've never had to defend a woman, although women do it too. Um, but there were often times where it was, what's my wife going to think? And what am I
Right.
going to explain to my wife, to my kids, my community, my reputation, all these other factors at play. So it wasn't just about what do the people in this mediation room think of me, but outside of the mediation room, and what are those consequences going to be? Um, and of course, like I said, it takes a lot of work and a lot of prep, both on my part and the mediators, to get the defendant on board with understanding resolution does not equal guilt, that there
Right.
are two different things. um, you can't ignore those emotional aspects. I think that, you know in my experience, both parties need validation. And in fact, what I would often do, and I made a practice of doing this, is we normally would not have a joint session in my mediation cases. And I didn't think those were useful personally in the context
Yeah.
of our cases. I didn't feel like that was a good idea in terms of how to start it. So usually we would start in our separate rooms, but I would make a point of personally, without my client, going over and introducing myself to the plaintiff. I wanted the plaintiff to see me as a human being, and
Mm-hmm.
for them to see me seeing them as a human being, because I feel like there's so much more we can achieve when we remember to humanize people, because otherwise it would be too easy to lump me in and demonize me along with my client. And I'm not saying that demonizing my client is the right thing to do either, but as an advocate for my client, I felt like it was important for me to humanize myself. And in some occasions, we would even have the defendant, my client, in some circumstances, going over and being able to have a conversation. Or sometimes what the plaintiff wanted was an apology. And those can be really hard, especially if the defendant is denying that it ever happened. But there's ways to get around it. I just more and more realized in my practice that everybody has their own perception of reality.
Yes.
That is their truth. That is their reality. And being able to put aside your own ego to respect and validate their reality, can be a really hard thing to do, but also very rewarding, in reaching a resolution.
Absolutely. And I love that you said that because it reminds me of a Brene Brown quote, and I know you love her.
I do.
And she said, in order to empathize with someone's experience, you must be willing to believe them as they see it and not how you imagine their experience to be. And so I think that that really can be a bridge in these types of situations where we may all see these things differently, but we need to come together and at least try to see where the other person is, meet them there for at least for purposes of the mediation. Now, I'm certainly not suggesting that someone who has been discriminated against try to get into the head of the defendant, but at least try to understand that the defendant is being impacted. There is always a certain amount of emotion there. And another thing, I'll just throw out this personal anecdote. I had my own sexual harassment experience as a very, very young lawyer. I may have been 25, 26. And I didn't report it myself. Someone witnessed it and she reported it. And then the next thing I know, and I don't know why that made me laugh, but it was just, I guess because it was so absurd now in hindsight. I was then taken into a meeting and had to confront this man who had been harassing me on a daily basis. And he was, he's my direct report, right? And so it was not fun. And he admitted that he had done it though, and he wanted to apologize. But then he kind of went into this whole, I feel terrible about how people are looking at me. And I've had to apologize to my wife. And even asked me if I would talk to his wife on his behalf. So it was very strange. But I bring that up because it is just it's just indicative of how much baggage the defendant can bring into this type of mediation, depending on how those things went. Now, luckily in my situation, I didn't really want to deal with it. Nothing too terrible I had happened. And, I mean, we've gone through the whole Me Too movement at this point. So maybe in hindsight, it's a little bit different. But regardless, I can imagine a defendant showing up with their lawyer with all of that and having lived with that for however long it took them to get to mediation. So tell me what that feels like though when you walk in as the attorney, and of course you've started working with this person in advance on what's going on and all of that, but mediation day is a different animal. It feels different. It's a more stressful situation because it's go time, right? What does that feel like for you? What's the experience for you as the lawyer, and how do you start that conversation on the day with your client?
Like I mentioned earlier, I would not be doing my job if I was talking to them for the first time about mediation on the morning of. So I've
Absolutely.
already, had a lot of pep talks with them. I've shared information. And on the day of, it's going to be a long day. We're going to get to know each other really well. We're going to spend a lot of time together. Where would you like to go to lunch? I seriously, I'm so jealous of our co-star, Shari Bellitz,
Yes.
and her work in psychology, because seriously, so much of what I was doing, and especially at mediation, I felt like was therapy.
Right.
Because my goal at that time was like I said, I'm dealing with different players and characters and trying to meet all their different needs. And for my client on that day, I need to get them in the right mindset. I need to make them feel as comfortable as possible, to put down their guard, hopefully overcome ego, overcome these other issues and obstacles that we're having. And so, you know, I I'm thinking back. I have no idea how many mediations I've done. Lots of them. I
Lots
mean,
of them.
let's put this into context. I've been in-house now for almost 10 years. Next month will be 10 years. So I was in private practice for 10 years, over 10 years. And
Congratulations. I had no idea it was that long, Talar.
yeah, you calling me old?
No,
Is that
I'm
what you're
not calling you
saying?
old.
I
No,
heard you were saying I'm old.
what I think I'm saying is that you are so gorgeous and you look so good. I never would have imagined.
Mm, you're good. I like you.
Just
You're
honest, just honest.
you're really good. Yeah, it's been 21 years since I graduated. Um, so I have never gone to trial as a lawyer. I've been to several of them before I became a lawyer, which is at the same law firm. I later, became a lawyer and partner Fisher and Phillips, again,
Yeah.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
Um, and so it was my first year. Um, it was at a different law firm. I was second chair in a sexual harassment binding arbitration. And that was it. The rest of my cases resolved through some sort of either mediation or settlement. That's what happened. I mean, this is California. Um, there were some, summary judgment motions where I was successful, but those are few and far between just because the case law and the burdens in California are so difficult. And,
Right.
the plaintiffs bar there, they know it. They know what they're doing. And so that's how it goes. But there is something that I wanted to say, even though you didn't ask the question, I'm going to
Go
answer
for
the
it.
unasked question, or the question that I want to answer. Talara, why did you become a lawyer? Why did you become an employment lawyer? And the
Okay.
reason, the reason I wanted to ask and answer that question myself is, first, I want to say I'm sorry for the experience that you went through,
No.
having to experience that. I certainly have had my own experiences, um, and that is the reason why I became a defense lawyer. I was a naive young college student. I
Hmm.
was 18 when I started my legal career at Fisher and Phillips as the slowest file clerk ever, because I I read everything I filed, but my quality of work was excellent. Um, and I was still at that phase in my life where I wanted to make the world a better place. I grew up in the Middle East, where discrimination was not only not unlawful, it was the law. My parents' ID cards in Saudi Arabia had their religion and their national origin. They were paid differently, couldn't
Yeah.
own land, like, and so I really did go into it thinking, I'm going to make a difference by helping the victim before there could be a victim. I was going to be the advisor to the employer to help them understand and do things right, so that it would mitigate any potential for harm. And what really upset me is that, at least in the cases that I saw, I'm not saying, I don't have statistics, I don't have stuff like that. But, in the work that I saw at the firm, and in my ability to get to know my clients, more often than not, they really were trying to do the right thing. Or if there was somebody doing something wrong, maybe management didn't know about it and there were processes that could be fixed. But there's so many instances of harassment. I mean, even your own story you're talking about, women who are actually experiencing it, they are afraid to speak up because of the stigma, because of
Absolutely.
what's happened to the landscape. And I mean, I'm not saying that filing a lawsuit is the right way to go, right? But I that is a part of my agenda, and my mission is, um, the workplace should be a safe environment, regardless of your gender, regardless of your religion or your race. And I feel like the more companies that invest in being able to understand these things, um, the more we can make a difference. Because I think it's horrible that even in this day and age, women could be treated that way. It's really horrible. And you and I
Yeah,
see it all the time, right? On
all
LinkedIn.
the time. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
The
all the
messages
time.
we get.
Yeah, the message. Listen, I got. Oh, I didn't get one as good as the one that you got this morning. But yeah, the messages that we get on LinkedIn are just insane. Like, we are clearly there to network, meet people, socialize because it's COVID. Not, we're not there to invite any type of sexual innuendo in our inboxes. And it's just crazy. And the men, and I'm gonna say men because it's only happened to me with men, but the men who do these things, they're doing it with their real names and their real email addresses, and I know where you work and it's easy to find you. And so one guy, I said, that's completely inappropriate. Do not ever contact me again. I've already screenshot this. Try it again, and I'm going to publicly out you. So he went away, thank God. But yeah, it's constant. And going back when I had that specific experience at a law firm when I was very, very young, I was not in a position where I could afford to lose my job. I was so young, so broke, had not a clue about what was going on. I didn't really know how to litigate. I mean, it was my first year as a lawyer. I was concerned about, if I did leave, would I be able to find a job quickly? I mean, I just had all of these things that I had to worry about. And unfortunately, it was like almost the least of the problems was what he was doing. Because all of the consequences that were going to happen to me. And I knew that. He was a senior partner on the verge of retirement. Huge, huge, huge book of business. I knew nothing was going to happen to him. So I was just going to try to be quiet, keep my head down, and see if I could get through it, right? Thankfully, I say thankfully in hindsight because I was not happy when it happened at the time. But my much older female friend stuck up for me. She reported it, and I was immediately moved to a different area of the firm, a different practice group, which was great. So I made it through that, but I shouldn't have had to. I mean, I feel like we've gotten a little bit far afield of what we were talking about before, but we shouldn't have to have those conversations with ourselves. And the fact that it continues every single day is just, it's so disheartening and it is so painful. And it makes me sad for my kids that we're still dealing with these things. And so I love what you said, the question I didn't ask that you answered. But I love that that was your motivation. Your motivation was try to get in on the other side and make sure these things aren't happening and develop best practices. And that's huge, and I love that. Because as defense attorneys, in whatever capacity, people who aren't familiar with how the justice system should work and how everyone is entitled to a defense, they think of us as, how could you defend this person? Well, it's not just defending this person. This person is entitled to a defense, but there are also lots of other things going on. We have the ability to change, to make case law, change laws, to implement better practices wherever we go, and to really help people. Yeah, and I would imagine, Talar, that in your career, you've come across people who were doing some crazy things who didn't necessarily understand that they were inappropriate or wrong.
There's still a few of those out there.
I mean, they're everywhere, right?
Yes, they are. They
Yeah.
are. And it requires a lot of patience, a lot of patience to be able to remain persistent and hopeful that you can pull them out of their reality
Right.
into another reality where they could actually see that it might be inappropriate. Because it's, where I'm not saying that it's an excuse, but I understand it to a certain extent. We we are somewhat of a product of our experiences and our upbringing. And if they just have never had to encounter some different perspective where their behavior is not okay, something like in the workplace, man calling you sweetie. Hey, sweetie, how are you doing today? Hey, sweetie, and it seems
Drives me
so,
nuts.
it's it seems harmless, and I've seen this, especially not to stereotype, but with older gentlemen, that my point being, I want to believe it comes from a place of kindness and chivalry. It's not coming from a place of, I'm going to put you down because you're of the female gender. But I've had to have conversations with people like that to help them explain how that can come across. One, how it can make me feel,
Right.
less than professional, as well as how is it going to make other women feel around me or other men around me. You're giving them permission to treat me that way, even though you might not have any malicious intent. So and training was a lot of the work that I did, and part of the most enjoyable aspect of my work, training managers to help them understand, show them the different ways it can manifest, and explain to them, like, and look them in the eye as a woman and say, when I'm meeting you and you're staring at my breasts or their elevator eyes checking me out, that makes me feel very little and small. It's very demeaning. So even though there's not a word uttered from you that's disrespectful, that behavior alone can have such an impact. And I would like to think that my training, my messages, maybe it reached a few of those people, and they get it now, and it's not harmless. Um,
Right.
so that part of it was, that part of my work was rewarding. And now, getting to be in-house, um, I, that's most of what I get to do is the advice and counsel part of my work. I don't litigate anymore. And the reason I don't is because I went to a therapist back in 2006, and she says, "Don't you fight for a living?" I said, yeah, I guess so. I litigate. And she goes, "Well, you don't strike me as a confrontational person." And I said, "I'm not." And it was at that point I realized I think I need to find another job where I don't litigate.
Oh my God, that is I love that. And listen, the plug for therapy is important as well. But Talar, so I would love if you could give like your favorite, best, I don't know what what word to use because I want to hear something that was completely crazy. Like the worst behaved defendant that you had, like so emotionally charged, hyped up, angry that they were there, completely in denial about ever having done anything wrong. What do you do with that?
Call in for reinforcements.
That's where
I,
I step in.
I'm not even kidding. Well, no, more than you. I actually have a particular memory. And, thankfully, I'm going to give a plug for my mentor and former partner, Jim McDonald, who, I mean, he hired me when I was 18, and then I got to hire him as his client now.
I
That
love
was
that.
that was fun. Yeah. Um, I remember this particular situation, and I told him what was going on, because the client wasn't taking me seriously, and I felt like it was a gender issue. And I still, believed in the company. That's who I represent, not the individual, but
Right.
the individual was a part of this. And I had to have a conversation with him saying, I don't think I can represent this company the way that they need representation because of this relationship. And he was great about it. And he said, thanks for letting me know. I'm going to take it over for you. And that's what I needed. It wasn't going to work. I couldn't
Right.
get through. I
Right.
couldn't get through. And, of course, ironically, that was part of the allegations. Go figure. Um,
Shocking.
Shocking. Yeah. But that would happen. I had client once, I can picture him right now sitting in my office, saying, do you have the balls to take this case? And I said, no, I don't. If that's what you need for this case, I'd like to introduce you to one of my partners down the hall. I can't vouch that they have the equipment you're requesting,
Oh
but
God.
I think they might. Is
Oh,
that inappropriate too? Have I gone too far?
no, listen, I was just messing with you. Um, but I love that response, and it makes so much sense. If someone really doesn't know that they've done something wrong, genuinely believes they haven't done something wrong, it's because, like you said earlier, you're the sum total of everything you've learned, everything that you've been through, right? And so if that's just part of what life has been like, it has got to be extremely hard to hear as a grown adult that maybe you shouldn't be ogling women. Maybe don't try to look up their skirt while you're sitting in a meeting. That actually happened to me. Um, that was unfortunate. I know you say you're not a confrontational person, but that comment seems confrontational to me. I don't know.
I call it confident.
Confident.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's
Be,
call it confident.
because I wasn't going to argue with him. I wasn't what he wanted. And I mean,
Right.
thankfully, it was later on in my career where I was very successful. I had a great book of business. I wasn't worried about not having the work or the client. And
Hmm.
so I had developed the confidence to be able to turn him away. And actually, one of my greatest memories and practices when I fired a client, that felt so good. And and you know why? I was standing up for my associates. We were defending a class action, and my associates kept complaining about how this client was treating them. And, it was meant a lot of money, a lot of work.
Hmm.
But that it wasn't worth it to me, even though they weren't treating me that way. It was very different, but they were
Right.
being very abusive, for lack of a better word, of my associates. And that's not okay.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I'm happy that you did that. I'm not surprised because I know you that you did that, but I love it. Now, do you ever feel like you had a client have a I don't know, have that come to Jesus moment where they realize, oh wow, I have been doing something inappropriate. I feel really badly about it. Help me do better going forward. Talar. Please help me, Talar.
Yes, help me help you.
Yes, help me, help me.
I don't have a recollection necessarily of a specific occurrence, but and hopefully it's not just wishful thinking, but getting my message across in these conversations and trainings where particularly I'm trying to explain um, the effect of discrimination and harassment against women in the workplace.
Yeah.
I felt like I did see light bulbs, and in the follow-up questions, the nodding of the heads, and just their receptiveness to the message. I felt like there were people that I got across to because I was able to explain it in a way that wasn't accusing them of being a bad person,
Hmm.
because nobody wants to hear that, but instead explain the point of view of the victim and the effect that it has, and then understanding and being able to tie those things together to come to that realization. I felt like I had a lot of those types of moments.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you from my perspective too. When I see these types of things in mediations where, someone has done something wrong, they don't necessarily know as we're going into it that it is wrong, but they're open to hearing what the other side is saying and why they feel the way that they do about the behavior, and simply working through it with them and reframing all of that information and helping people come to, meeting people where they're at, you know, figuring out how to reach that specific person and letting them know, yeah, I understand you didn't mean anything by that, and this is just how it's been for you, but this is why that is not okay for this person, and you shouldn't be doing that going forward. And so I definitely see the light bulb moments. I've never had anyone say, "Oh my God, my whole life has been a lie," or
Yeah.
anything crazy like that. Now, if that ever happens, that would be really cool. But just getting people to realize that there is another perspective, and a lot of it is the differentiate the why can't I say this word? The difference between what your intention is and what the effect is. Because it's not your intention that really matters to the person who has had this inflicted upon them, you know? They don't really care what you meant. They care about how they feel. They care about how they've been affected. And so when we can split those two things up and we can explain that, I think we have a much easier time coming together. We're much more likely to see some type of improvement or closure for the alleged offending person. You know what I mean? Do you agree with that?
I do definitely. And as you were saying that, it reminds me, I don't know where who I heard it from. I can't take credit for it, but um
It was me.
okay. All right. Okay, Winter. But whether it was through litigation, mediation, settlement, whatever the case was, I'd always tell my client that, this is education that you're getting. Sometimes it's more expensive than other times. That's the tuition that you're paying for it.
Yeah.
Um, so even with, you know, uh, lawsuits, and they're not pleasant, that is the value that I would try to get out for them, is taking it as a learning experience. You might be learning something new about your company and the people who are working for you, or you might be learning something new about yourself. Um, and if it took a complaint for you to get that lesson, then that's what it took, and that's your tuition. Um,
Right.
and I'm not saying, I mean, sometimes there were definitely cases where I didn't think my client deserved to be sued, and I didn't think it was right. But whatever the case, even in those circumstances, there's always something that you can learn.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. We can always improve, right? We can always learn from other people. We can learn from others' sensitivities and, try to eliminate any confusion going forward. I definitely think that that's the case.
Yeah, yeah. I think that when you're done learning, you're dead, basically, either literally 6 feet under, or you've just, your
You've
life
checked
is
out.
dead. You've checked out. Yeah.
Oh my God. So, Talar, I have to say that one of the things that I love the most about you And
It
is
doesn't have to be just one winter. We still have some time. You want to give me 10 maybe?
I mean, I could, but we've been recording for a while, so can I stick to one? Can I stick to
Okay,
one? All right.
that's fine.
You have the biggest heart of anyone I think that I've ever met. Your personal philanthropic efforts are on a scale far greater than I've ever seen in an individual person. So if you would, please, in your own words, because I will never be as eloquent as you when talking about this, but could you talk to us a bit about your dedication to SOAR, the Society of Orphaned Armenians?
Yes, I would be happy to. My philanthropy started after my dad died. He died in 2006 in Lebanon. Um, and it was a really traumatic experience. I mean, losing a parent is difficult at any time, but it was during a war. It was unexpected. I traveled from California through Damascus to get to him in Lebanon. And I am so grateful. By God's grace, I got to be with him for 12 hours before he died. And was a really, really difficult time for me. And I wasn't ready to let go of him. I didn't want to forget him. I didn't want the world to forget him. And I was trying to find healthier ways of coping, because at the time it was not a good situation for me. And so I decided, my dad was really passionate about children. And before I found SOAR, I mean, I wanted to find Armenian children to support. And one of the reasons why I love all children, I don't, adults, not so much.
They're
Children,
questionable.
children, I love them all. But the reason that I support, in this particular channel, Armenian children, is there, there's so few Armenians. And so if Armenians don't support the Armenian children, there, nobody else will.
Right.
And so it's like, I'd like to save all of them, but I can't. So I wanted to like focus in on who I can. And so I searched online on Google at the time, and this is probably about 10 years ago, I think, to try to find charities that support Armenian children. I discovered SOAR. At the time, I think they only had like 5 chapters. The founder, his name is George Yakubian. He's a American lawyer in Philadelphia, I think second generation or third generation Armenian. And, his day job is a white criminal defense lawyer, but he started this because he adopted one of his daughters from an orphanage in Armenia. He saw how horrible the conditions were.
Hmm.
And so he wanted to find a way to help these orphanages. And that was important to me because I love charities, but I'm very skeptical. I want my money to do what it's intended.
Right.
I hate waste. And hopefully I don't offend anybody, but like if I see some of these charitable organizations with CEOs making over $500,000, it just it just rubs me the wrong way. So the fact that George, the founder and CEO of this charitable organization, wasn't making any money, I thought, okay, this is the real deal. He's doing it for the right reasons with heart. And the other thing is he's just as paranoid as I am about money. And he went through with me in terms of all the checks and balances in place in order to
Wow.
make sure that the money gets to where it is. So I support orphanages in Lebanon because that's where I'm from, where my dad died. And I have direct contacts with the people there. I know directly what their needs are. I know what the costs are and where to get them from and how they need to get it. And so it's a very different relationship than some, abstract charitable organization where you're just writing a check.
Right.
So that's a part of what makes me so invested in it. But the reason that I put all my all into it, I don't know if it's because of a big heart and all the right reasons. It's how I grieve for the loss of my father.
Yeah.
Um, because otherwise I think I would just end up, spiraling into a terrible place. And so this is my using my grief for good. And I have a very soft spot in my heart for children, and I would, if I see them in person, I would probably bring them all home. I mean, I literally would probably bring them all home. And so this is the next best thing I can do. I hopefully I'm giving them a chance. I'm giving them some hope.
I love that. I've recently had an episode where we talked about grief and how people grieve differently and how grief presents itself. And first of all, I think it is amazing that you recognize that this is how you work through your grief. And it's beautiful that you are putting in so much effort to help these children, and I love that that's what makes you feel good. I love that. I think it's amazing. And I think your dad's memory, it lives on. It definitely lives on. So, I want you to know that I believe very much in this organization too, through you. So, your dad is living in so many people, and not to sound sappy about it, but the fact that SOAR now means something to me when I'd never heard of it before I met you.
Mm-hmm.
And I share it with other people. I talk about it with other people. I try to encourage other people to learn about it. You know, that's a beautiful thing to learn. I hope you really grasp the gravity of that and just the enormity of what you've done for SOAR, for Lebanon, for the children, and for your dad. So I just want you to know that for sure.
I I appreciate that very much, and I thank you for those kind words.
Oh, I love you so much, Solar. So, every Thanksgiving you raise money for SOAR through a run, and I actually participated last year. It was a lot of fun, even though it was virtual. I got up super early, ran 2 miles before I started cooking dinner, and I did the run while wearing a tiara in your honor.
Bless your heart. I don't think anybody has ever done that for me. Winter. Oh, wait a minute. I think Bob Levant did, but his was like a paper one. You had the real deal. We have matching tiaras. That's what we should
Yes,
have worn today.
we should have next time, right?
Maybe we'll have another photo op for that. But can I plug my book before I forget?
Well, I'm not done.
Oh, you're not done with
I'm
me?
not done.
I thought you're
No.
you're
No, that's
getting
what.
rid of me.
No, I'm not getting rid of you. That's the next thing that I wanted to talk about. You know, your because your current fundraising effort has really, really blown me away. The fact that you've written a children's book, which is phenomenal, by the way, and is available right now for pre-order on Amazon and directly from the publisher. It's called Ralphie's Rules for Living the Good Life. And I'll include links and all of this information in the show notes, so be sure to read those so you can support Talar. But Talar, please tell us more about the book and how that is helping SOAR.
You know what's funny is I think the story in the book is fantastic. I mean, I'm biased, obviously, but
A little
it's
bit,
true.
maybe.
It's true. I mean, you know what? There's facts and then there's facts. That's a fact. Read it. It's a great story. But you know what I also love is the story about the story. There's so many layers of stories upon stories. And you're a part of this story. You
Me?
are.
I
You
love
are
it.
a part of this story. You know, had it not been getting on LinkedIn, meeting you, publishing network together, I never would have dreamed of publishing a children's book to raise money for the orphanages. It was this combination of events. So that was like one of the layers of my inspiration for Ralphie's Rules. The other layer was my furry client, Ralphie. People think
Yeah.
he's my dog. He's not even my dog. I wrote a
I
story.
love that though. I love that though. It took me a long time to realize that Ralphie really wasn't your dog
He's not
because
my
you
dog.
call him your client, and I thought you were just being funny.
No, he's my furry client. I dog walk. And that's how I met Ralphie last, what was it, like May or June. And so I walk Ralphie across the street at City Hall, Washington Square, downtown Salt Lake City. And when we're walking there, Ralphie is always looking for Joey, the squirrel. We've named all the squirrels that he chases. And so it was through this, and then also reading The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Oh, amazing.
Yes.
Amazing book.
And originally I wanted to call it The Four Agreements for Kids because it's the storytelling of Don Miguel Ruiz's agreements. And I even got in touch with the publisher to get copyright permission, but they denied it.
Of course they did.
So so I
But I
changed the
love the
name.
effort.
Yeah, well, because I thought, and this is my goal. I've already written the next book, which is Ralphie's Rules on the Way to School, which my son helped me come up with.
I love it.
And that's the other neat thing, Winter. My son has started writing his own comic books. He's written 25 chapters. You know what they're
Oh
called?
my God.
It's the Adventures of the Person.
Okay. The Adventures of the Person.
It's hilarious. He has like the person and then the milk person and Pepsi person. I just love that he's using his imagination.
I gotta read this. I really do. I really do.
So he sees me and he's so proud of me. And I was talking about this in a parenting clubhouse room the other day. One of the other added benefits of what I've done with Ralphie's Rules, my son is so proud of me, which means more to me than anything. And
Yeah.
I feel like, this is going to be a part of who he is as he grows up. It's not going to end with me, that this charitable giving will continue with him because he knows it's like a fabric of our life. So that and
Oh,
him writing the
wow.
books, it's just been giving and giving and giving in so many unexpected ways. Not to mention, that the message in the story in and of itself, Ralphie's Rules. And the first one is probably my favorite, which is to be kind to yourself and to be kind to others. I think people regularly will preach about the importance of kindness, but forget the first part, that it starts with being kind to yourself.
Right.
Um,
That's hard.
so it can be, although I'll give you a tip. One of the things that I do to be nicer to myself, I was really cute when I was 4. And
You're
so,
so cute now. What are you talking about?
no, you should see when I was 4.
Okay.
I and I remember being 4. And so when I'm being hard on myself or I'm having negative self-talk, I literally will picture myself as that 4-year-old little girl. Because you can't be mean to her.
I
Right?
love that.
Yeah. So try that next time. I bet you were cute when you were 4.
Listen, I was killing it. There's this one particular photo of myself at 4, and I have on, I mean, it was the 80s. I have on this big pink dress, and my hair's up, and I've got like pink ribbons, and I just have the biggest smile, and I can tell how happy I was that day.
Aw.
So I'm absolutely gonna do that. I'm gonna like put that picture up and remind myself that, that 4-year-old deserves a lot better than I'm doing for her right now. Thank you, Talar. That's like, I don't know, man. I think we need to put that like on a meme or something.
Yeah. Yeah. You could put up the picture with the note that says, be nice to her.
Yep, absolutely.
Right.
But yeah, that's one of the things that I loved about the book is that it's not just for kids. These are lessons for every human, but you did it in a way that is digestible and easy for kids to understand and to implement, and I love
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah. Or even grown-ups who still have the mental bandwidth of children, you know?
There are a lot of them out there. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. But I also wanted to say and plug that you're doing a speaking tour for children and you're zooming into classrooms to read the story to students. And I love that. And so I hope that people who are listening will try to get in contact with you and take you up on that.
Yeah, I think it'll be really fun. And you know, I I I wish I could do it in person because I'm going to take Ralphie with me, the real Ralphie. But then at
Yeah,
least even if I can't do it in person, I feel like the silver lining is it's accessible to anybody who
right.
has internet, basically. So if you're out there, whether you are a homeschooling parent and you want to have me do a virtual reading with Ralphie, I would be happy to do that for you, and donate a book to you as well. I got paw prints. I got for autographs from
Oh,
Ralphie.
so
They're so cute. I'll
cute.
have to send you one. Or if you're a grade school teacher, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. I'm sure you have international listeners.
I do.
I would be happy to offer a virtual reading and share this story with the littles in your life. And
Oh,
you can find me on LinkedIn. Um, I'm Talar Herculian Coursey, and I think my LinkedIn link is Talar ESQ.
well, I'll have all of that included in our show notes so you'll be easy to find for anyone who listens.
Not the creepers. Can we add like in the fine print? Can we redirect creepers somewhere else? Because
I'll try.
okay.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for being with me today. This has been really, really fun. Um, my goodness, I feel like I have learned a lot about you today.
Do you still like me? I mean, that's the important question.
I adore you even more.
Okay. Okay,
Even more.
good.
Absolutely.
Thank
Love
you
it.
for having me. This has been a fun conversation. We'll have to continue sometime.
We sure will.